Hey, what is going on, everybody? As you already know, this is Dell for Dads. I am Dell Robinson. For those that don't know me, I am Dell Robinson. This podcast is mostly based for fathers going through the court system, family court systems, just a platform where we give dads a space to speak, talk about their dealings, having their constitutional rights violated. As many of you know, both mine and my child's constitutional rights are currently being violated, and we're fighting for those rights to be justified. Today, I do have a special guest, and some of you may know him, some of you may not. Either way, I'm glad to be able to have him on here today to be able to tell his story. He does know a little bit about my story, firsthand witnessed some of the things that I've gone through. Yeah, he'll be finding out some new things today, some stories that he may not have really known were happening. And we're just here to chat it up, just kind of two fathers kind of doing the thing. If you don't follow him, you should definitely follow him on his TikTok. It's Single Father Exists. And yeah, today I want to welcome my man, Will. Hey, Will, how you doing, big dog?
Going on, big dog? How are you, man?
I'm out here just surviving, man, single
Good.
dad kind of things. So, single dad as far as like single in the relationship of these children, but doing dad things, I should say, because I got a beautiful wife, as you already know, Jack. She's a beautiful woman, and she's a very helpful bonus mom, is what we like to call her. Yeah,
Mm,
I can't really claim single dad life, but you know what I'm saying.
I get it. I completely understand it.
So, man, yeah, you are a unique, very unique individual in my own opinion, and I say that to many facets. Right, I do believe we share a lot of common ground on a lot of different things. One, when we were both, living here, we were one of very few Black people in this area, and even more so, Black fathers that, care for their children and showed up for their kids and really just were there, man. I've known you for probably a few years now, I'd say, and I don't think we really ended up really getting to connect with each other until these last couple of years, where we both ended up showing up at school, picking our kids up, dropping our kids off. So it was just wild seeing us kind of be the only ones that look like us, but more importantly, just the fact that we were there, and we're showing up, and the love that I feel like we got from other parents, just being there, and I think that has a lot to say for just dads in general, but more importantly, Black fathers that so often, more than not, have that wild stereotype. And you already know, I don't even have to say it, it's just a stereotype that everybody knows and likes to throw jabs at and stuff. So but we show up, we want to, we show up because we go against the grain, as some people would like to say, so yeah, go ahead. Tell the world who you are. Tell the world what you about. Tell the world a little about yourself.
So, like I said, I started a TikTok page called Single Fathers Exist because um, I wanted the world to finally realize that we are out here. Um, we live in a world and we live in a society where everybody's grouped into boxes. Experiences give people the feeling that they have permission to put each and every individual in the same box because of whatever similarities they may have. Either they're a male and all men are garbage, or they're females and all females all they do is want money. But when it comes to parenthood, there's no justification for putting either side into a box,
That's right.
because it's no longer about you or her. It's about that child, and I think a lot of people forgot that. What I went through was I had to fight, and I mean fight for my daughter. But luckily, I number one am a fighter, and number two, I educate myself on everything. So to give y'all a little insight, I was married to my daughter's mother. We had my daughter. I want my daughter to be. My daughter was at our wedding. My daughter was 8 months when she was at our wedding. I was married. I wanted to do the right thing. I didn't grow up with a dad. My dad got taken away from me when I was only 3 months old. So I never wanted my kids to grow up without a dad. So I waited to have my daughter. I wanted to be responsible, and I wanted to be able to handle being a father, not just a donor or not just someone that had a baby. I wanted to be ready to be around no matter what it took. So I waited. I waited a long time. I didn't have my daughter till I was 37.
Wow.
So
Wow. That's good. That shows. That shows that you were being disciplined in what you're saying.
it's all about self discipline and being able to understand that when push comes to shove, self accountability is huge. You have to be able to say, "Hey, I'm not doing the right thing. This is not doing the right thing by this person, by my kid. I can't do this to my kid." You know what I mean? You have to have that. If you don't have that, then it's something that you need to develop and look into. My daughter mother, she got into drugs. I tried it. I tried it. I tried it. I tried, and I fought with her over getting help and getting the help she needed in order for her to get better. And I stood by her, and I went through the crap, and I went through I went through coming home to my house and finding people there who telling me I can't be in my house. I went through it all. I went through it all, and these people don't even they had no idea who I was, and they didn't have any idea what I was capable of because I left that life alone when I had my daughter. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
didn't
man.
want to consider that anymore when I had my daughter. So they only saw the other side. They saw, oh, this nice, calm, collective, smooth talking individual. Because I didn't even yell. I'm just like, listen, the best thing for y'all to do is leave. And at certain instances, I think people started realizing that sooner or later, the calm comes before the storm type of ordeal. So it just started getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. One night, I'm coming home from work and I pull up, and all the lights in my house are off. Right now, mind you,
Gee.
I had property at my house. I had my daughter's. I built my daughter's playground on the yard. I built a swimming pool. Like I wanted to give my daughter a life that I never had. You know what I mean? I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York City, in the projects. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, it's in a lot of people don't know that, and I'm glad that you brought that up again because it's that stereotype that we are given so often where black dad going to get carton of milk, going to get his carton of cigarettes and never to be seen again kind of deal. And then this, when you have a dad that's here trying to be present. So they don't understand. Not everybody. I'm not gonna say not everybody does not understand, but it's a reality. And it was a reality back then in the 80s. It is a reality still now to this day in the 2000s. And it's just one of those things that this has always been an uphill battle for people that look like us.
it's always going to be, no matter what. So I came home one night, all the lights is off in my house. My lights are never off in my house because my daughter's running around the house, right? I didn't get a phone call saying they went anywhere, nothing. So I'm freaking out. So I call one of my close boys to come to my house because I don't know what's waiting in the house. I don't know what's going to happen, right? He comes to the house. Next thing you know, the police roll up. They served me with a restraining order, with emergency release of abuse order. And I'm like, what is this? And they like, you need to leave the premises. I'm like, I'm not leaving my house. Like, what are you talking about? I was like, they was like, well, you've been served. I was like, served for what? And they telling me that my daughter's mother put a complaint out on me saying that I did all this stuff. Like I beat her up. I put a gun in her mouth. And she had witnesses to back her up. I'm like, what witnesses? I'm like, well, I can't tell you that. You'll find out in court, right? Fast forward, I wound up going to a hotel. I had savings. Luckily, I had savings, so I was living out of a hotel for a little while. I go to court, and her witnesses don't show up. The reason why her witnesses don't show up is because they're all druggies.
That I was gonna say either that or there were zero, there was zero witnesses. And there's a term for that. And it's funny because I keep hearing this more and more and more, and it's a real thing. And it's called the silver bullet. They even have a name for it. They call it the silver bullet, and it's for that abuse portion. And there's a whole industry in domestic violence alone, let alone just like bring it into like a child, custody dispute. So yeah, man, that alone is just it's hard to swallow. But when they even have a term for it, the silver bullet, I heard this off of, and this is one I was actually going to tell you, you should check out. It's another podcast called The Father's Truth. Man, this guy, his stories, some of the stories he has on his podcast are just heartbreaking. The very first one I listened to was about a dad that literally was alienated so hard out of his child's life that she ended up passing away. And he didn't even get to say bye to her. He didn't even get to see her in the hospital. She ended up having cancer and didn't even get to say bye to his own child, man. Like, this is crazy. And it's crazy because it's just happening. It's happening right now. It's happening everywhere we go. And no one's making a point. And that's why I chose to make it a point. And that's why I asked. And I was like, bro, you have a story and this needs to be heard regardless of whatever the outcome is going to happen, because you're already dealing with whatever it is you're dealing with. But in the end, there should be there needs to be a right to all these wrongs,
It has to be, man. And after that situation took place, and I was already in a hotel and stuff, and I couldn't see my daughter for like 2 months. Like, they wouldn't even let me see my daughter. And after we went to court and no one showed up and she had no evidence, and the judge was like, "This is ridiculous." She was like, "What do you want to do?" I'm like, "I'm staying." I'm like, "I'm all set. I'm about to find me an apartment. I'm all set with this. I'm not doing this no more." So that's one thing that people need to understand is, like, you have to be stern when you make a decision. This back and forth, I'm going to give them another chance stuff. While you in the situation, if you want to continue to see if someone's going to change, that's one thing. But once you make the choice that is done and you done, there's no going back. Especially when it comes to kids, because kids will always want to see their parents together. And it's hard for kids to continuously see their parents in and out of relationships and breaking up and getting back together and breaking up. Like, that
Yep.
destroys their perception of what a relationship is supposed to be, and it lessens the chances of them having a successful relationship as they grow up.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Absolutely.
at this time, the court was like, okay, all the charges was dropped. They found out they was all false. But I'm staying in my apartment. I just got my apartment. My daughter calls me and she's like, "Daddy, I can't wake mommy up." And some man tried to grab my leg. And I said, "What?" I said, "Stay on the phone. I'm on my way." So I went over to the house. Her mother's passed out, needles all over the place, and there's some guy laying on the floor, passed out. There was drugs being done, and my daughter's in the house upstairs. So she come downstairs. I said, "Go pack all your stuff right now. Whatever you want, you pack it right now." As I say that, this guy jumps up and grabs my leg. I boot him right in his head, boot him the hardest I could right in his head. He cracks his head open. Her mother jumps up. "What
Oh,
are you house?" Doesn't even realize it's me. Like, she has no idea it's me at all. Until I looked at her and said, "Are you kidding me right now?" And she's heard my voice and it snapped her out of it. Oh, what happened? What happened? You know exactly what happened. I said, "Why else would I
mm,
be here? Just come
yeah.
here." I said, "Listen, I'm going to take my daughter." Listen, it
Right.
don't matter. No say so
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
You out of your mind.
Seriously.
Smart though, because when I got off the phone, when I was on the phone with my daughter, I called the cops and told them what I was going to do. I told them what the situation was, and I told them, and they knew that the restraining order was done. I had permission to go back to my house whenever I wanted to. I told them I wasn't going to go back there, so
Yeah.
it was no legalized paperwork stopping me from entering that home. I still had
Now, was
keys
that before the abuse order was put into play, or was that
after
after?
the was put into play. This is
Oh,
court that this took place, so we
okay.
already went. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I already had all the paperwork that I needed. See, I'm a very smart man, right? Don't ever put yourself in a position where you have to make an emotional decision to react to something that you should not react to. And that's
Yes.
just
That's absolutely, and you know what? That's something I had to learn the hard way for sure. I will absolutely tell, tell on myself on that one. That is something I had to learn, even more so in just this case alone, right? So my kid's mom for this case ended up using evidence back from 2023 when we first like were really getting into like the mix of splitting up and everything. And I called her a see you next Tuesday, and she caught me on film, right? And even though my kids were in the vehicle, I shut the door. I could say whatever I want. Yeah, the music is playing, yada yada yada. It was still I acted off emotion. I didn't put my hands on her physically. I never would ever do something like that. Put my hands on a woman, mostly because I was raised by women. But just the fact that my kids had to be in the vicinity of it happening is really where I learned that lesson, right? Like I'll never act out based on what I'm feeling on the inside, because on the outside it could look like a million different things.
You have to be careful with that. Another thing you have to be careful of is, especially when you're dealing with the court system, you will always, as a father, have to prove triple, quadruple the times more when it comes to why this child belongs with you than they will. Like, it's just that way. Um, out of all evidence you can have showing that my child is going to be safer with me, it's like you have to prove you're worthy of being a parent. Like, I have to prove to a court that I'm worthy of taking care of my own child when I've been taking care of my own child this entire time, based upon somebody else's information, no matter if it's false or no matter if it's true. But they're just saying, basically they're saying whatever they told them is absolutely true. Now you have to discredit it. It's not even plain when you walk into that courtroom, and I
Never.
don't understand that.
And most women that are going into it, they do understand it. They already know. They walk in with the cassette. Like I believe I said this on one of my other podcasts. They walk in with this demeanor, this stature. Like they already know the game. The ball is already the game score is already at an advantage for them. You know, it doesn't even have to be a hand. Like the handicap is almost like it's almost like an offensive way to use that word, because like having a handicap, you know, means that you literally need the points given to you, right? They already have the points given and they're walking in like they already know the game's already are up by, up by 7. And we have to come in there and we have to, try to, like we've been saying, just battle uphill to prove that we as the other parent can do those things. And it's like, all because we are not able to breastfeed to begin with is where the bias starts, right? And then from there, they immediately just assume that they're going to be these nurturing humans, these like caring humans, which, yes, most mothers are that. And we had that discussion before too, like kid falls down on the ground, scrapes their knee up. We come over, we say, you good? Okay, come on, let's get back up and get back on the playground. Where another parent, is going to come over, coddle them. Oh no, you're bleeding. And sometimes, especially in my experience, what I find is when that happens, and you know what I do for work, I do body piercings, and when that situation happens, the coddling portion, that child almost never gets a second ear piercing in that session. However, what I do find is whenever I pierce the ear and I go, all right, you did it. Sounds good. You look good. Look great. You ready to do the next one? I'm a stranger to them. I'm a stranger to these children, right? So they should be more afraid of this guy going, oh my gosh, I'm excited that I just pierced you. You felt that? All right, cool. Let's do it again. And in that instance, they're ready to do it again. Where the parents, when the parents step in, and sometimes it's dads too, where they do that coddling portion, it almost never results in 2 earlobe piercings when it comes to minor lobe piercings.
That's because of two things, right? Number one, they say this, just look at it, just look at society as a whole right now, right? Um, it's stated that it was stated that men couldn't be raped, right? Like it's impossible, right? Right? That's what they say, right? It's
That,
impossible for
that
that.
is that is a statement that I've heard before. Yep.
Also say that men can't suffer domestic abuse, right? That's another statement. That
That is.
she's a, there's no way in the world she could have abused you. There's no way in the world she could have abused you. Even though there's instances out there where there's so much factional, statistical data out there showing that this is actually a thing. right? But it still pushed to the side as if it's nothing, right? Um, you go to court and a man doesn't have a lawyer for a domestic abuse case, but a woman can go sign up for WISE or one of those organizations. I don't hear MISE organization for men who suffer for domestic abuse. You don't see those programs, right? So at the end of the day, we our entire lives, no matter what people say, as men, we've been fighting uphill, right? We've been fighting uphill. As fathers, that hill then that slope then turned to an angle that's just, if you don't have it in you to keep going. That's why what people don't realize is everybody's like, oh, these fathers out here, they don't want to get involved. I've met fathers and I've talking to fathers who have fought for years and just been hit with a bat and then just got to the point where they was like, yeah, I'm all set, man. Like when my
Yeah.
kid 18, then I'll see what they want, and I know it's gonna be a struggle, but like I just keep getting knocked down, and
Yeah,
and,
man.
and it goes into the mental capacity of a man, and then we wind up with these suicide rates of men. 80% of men killing themselves based upon the situations that we speak of now.
Yep.
Not being,
1 out of every 10 fathers, 22 fathers a day commit suicide based on things that are happening like this.
but
And
no
that,
one issues as well. It's like they don't exist. It's like
right.
it don't men, don't matter
Right.
they men. But what they fail to realize is, and this is the truth, a woman is born with a certain amount of eggs. After a certain age, those eggs are gone. A man could be 155 and still have a baby.
Damn. I don't, that's crazy. I'm gonna have to look into that one, but that's crazy. That is crazy.
So if you really look at it and you really look at what's going on in this world, it's as if it's trying to give them an edge for them to believe, and society has done that. Society has made it so that the man is the enemy.
Hmm.
Like we are the ones who always have to prove that we're eligible to be where we need to be, right?
Hmm.
But if you look at history itself, women were never drafted into to fight for wars to keep freedoms in this country going, right? And this is not a man against a woman thing. This is just showing historically how men have always been put on the front line, but always wound up in the back of the line at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You-
And I mean, and that's even like we're talking about right now with the family court system. They made it during wartime that the mothers would stay home, just like you said, right? Over time, I forget what year it was. We were just looking at this the other night too. Me and my wife, we we were looking at it as when the mother, because the father was always looked at as head of household, and this is back to like the medieval times. Where the father always had like the say, right? The man of the house always had the say. Like this is, and then the sons of that household were looked at as the heirs. Like, okay, this is going to be the person that takes over once old man's gone and kicked the bucket. Where the women were looked at as the caregivers. Like, all right, you're hurt. I take care of these wounds. I bandage you up. And then later on, obviously, where equal rights were trying to be more formatted into life, like where women wanted to be more in the workforce, which I'm for. Like, there's jobs that I know I definitely couldn't do where a woman could do, well, and I shouldn't even say that I couldn't do. I personally either wouldn't want to do, or certain things and capabilities that my body just couldn't do where a woman's stature could. Then you have, women of bigger stature where they're going to be able to do and maybe lift things better than I could. Because as you know, I'm not the biggest human being in the world. I can hold my own. But if it's like, dang, this human's here willing to do that job, equal rights. That is how I consider equal rights, right? You want something and you're qualified to do it. You have the right to have it just as much as I do. But where we falter is back in these systematic places where money really comes into play, and that for me is really where all this kind of is really pointing at, and I have not quite figured it all out yet. And I don't want to bring too much to like attention to us in that aspect. That's a whole nother like conspiracy podcast we can throw together if you want to do something like that.
We can simplify this though, right? And we can simplify it real fast, right? Uh, it, in those days, women couldn't acquire debt, right? In those days, a woman of the household could not acquire debt. So the debt was always put on the man. So basically, if the man died, the woman still had no debt. A woman could not acquire debt. So the man was always looked at the head of household because he was the only one that could acquire debt. Women could not acquire debt, right?
Okay.
As the population grows and there's more women being born than men, how you think? Why do you think these rights and these civil rights was really implicated into these spots? They want to reverse it. It seemed like, oh, we was there for the people, but you really wasn't there for the people. There was more people that you was able to make money off of if you allowed these people to do this.
Mm.
If you gave these people those rights, now they could acquire debt. Now if they acquire, then they owe you money as a government, right?
Okay, I like that. I like that angle. I'm gonna have to look into that one. You always got me You always got me doing extra homework whenever I'm done talking to you, man.
It's true, man. Like a lot of people don't look. See, everybody wants to look at a surface, right? I'm a single dad, right? And I work and I ran my own business before I moved because I'm no longer located where we were. And I was working. I was in cars. I had my own business, and I was working a third shift job, right? I did my thing for my daughter, right? Walked down the block in a hoodie and sweatpants and my flip flops. If you don't know who I am, if I didn't gain the focus that I did in the area that I was in, so that people around me be like, oh, that's just Will. You know what I mean? It would have been like, yo, who's that? Why he's in a hoodie? You know, it would have been direct because I would have got put in a box. You know what I mean?
That's it.
It's just the way it is. But what people don't realize is this, and this is the main focus of this podcast, and I really do appreciate you having me on this, is that the harder you make it on the fathers, the harder you make it on the mothers, the harder you make it on your kids. That's the bottom line. To or not realize it, you cannot live in a individualistic mindset when you have kids, because it is about you and it's no longer about the person you had kids with, no matter if you're together or not. It's about how can we best make sure together that our kids grow up and this doesn't affect them in any negative portion of their lives.
Yep.
That's what. And if it takes women going to court saying, hey, listen, we getting a divorce, but this has nothing to do. He's a great father. He's always been a great father. My kids never had to worry about nothing. So we don't need you for anything else but allowing us to separate.
That's it. And the craziest part is, though, is we already know that's not how it goes, right? There's a small disconnect, and I'm not sure where it happens, and there's going to be so many opinions. Like, people are going to say, well, it's the lawyers that make them do it. Oh, well, it's the child support, the human that makes them, file for support. And there's so many avenues. And as much as I hate to do it and say it this way, it really does come down to these mothers, right? It's down to the parent that can say, no, I'm not going to allow this to happen. I understand where you're coming from. And I get that, yes, I may need support down the line. But what this does to that human, that individual, it still affects our children in the end. And that's not to say that parents shouldn't support their children monetarily. Like, obviously, like, the finances have to come one way or the other. But if you can co-parent, and that's really what it comes down to. If you're able to co-parent, great. If you're not, then yes, you got to let the courts do their thing. But it's really, once you go into the system, it is a blind competition of bat swinging. and you don't know who's going to get hit and where they're going to get hit from. And then it's the judges that also allow these things to happen, because if you're going to literally, for instance, as you know, in my case, write down on paper that this one individual is in favor two, while this individual is in favor one, but still the loser is the one that has more favors. Like, you already know that the system itself is now a messed up place, because like, how are you going to say in any, and I'm not going to sit here and be like, yo, I'm a mathematician. I went to school for English, right? For a reason. Like, I'm not great at math. I'm good at like basic math, right? But like, you're not going to sit here and tell me that in any sport that I've ever watched, participated in, or done anything, that the points are two. And technically, in my case, it was three, but they had to wash some pointage, so it didn't really go too drastic in one direction, right? But now it's like 2-1. And even if that one point was that, that monster slam dunk where, yammed it down, or that hockey like shot that came from behind the back kind of deal, you still got only 1 point, right? And that other team still got 2 points. And in the end of that two to like, so that is where, like, for me, like, this is all the issue, is where these people that are put in place and put in power are able to just kind of like just do their own kind of thing, right? And it's just like, it doesn't make any sense other than there's something deeper. And that deeperness is, that's what I'm saying. This podcast, we're gonna find out whether it takes one father or 800 fathers to do it. We're gonna find out.
But we already know what it is, and that's the point. We just don't want to blatantly put it out there. We already know what it is.
Yeah, and sometimes you can't, right? Because then you're in a little deeper than you need to be.
Yeah, we already know what it is. Look at me. I've been raising my daughter for 4 or 5 years now, and I've been paying child support to her mother, and she's been in my daughter's been in my custody the whole entire time.
And I remember we were talking about that too, because I was telling you, like, man, that's crazy. There's no way you should be doing that. But since I've been listening to those other podcasts, bro,
So I've been raising my daughter. My daughter's here with me in Arizona right now,
I know it.
paying child support to her mother that lives in Vermont. And my daughter's here. My daughter's in school. My daughter's here. Here.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I know.
So we got to be able to look at this, right? It goes back to what my grandmother used to say. She used to, and this was the funniest thing. And when she was teaching me stuff about my history, she was like, "Don't wind up being the slaves Harriet Tubman had to approach." And I would be like, "What does that mean?" She was like, "The funniest thing about it is Harriet Tubman asked what was the hardest thing about trying to get people out of there, and her response was, the hardest thing was convincing people they were slaves."
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
People didn't even realize they were slaves.
Hey.
So these people right now who are brainwashed thinking that this government is actually helping them when they're going for these things and helping them, putting them on these programs and helping them, they're enabling you to never move forward. You are always stuck with the initiative of, oh, I can always go to them and get help, instead of saying, I need to fix whatever I need to fix so that my kids won't ever have to worry about anything. So if I got to
do it
go out
all over again. Yeah.
4 jobs, right? Now, don't get me wrong, and I have to say this. Not all men deserve to be around their kids.
Nah.
Not all women deserve to be around their kids.
No.
This is fathers and the mothers who know for a fact that the opposite partner is a great parent, but is using these kids as a weapon. Instead of understanding that your kid, it does not give you extra points because he's at your house or she's at your house.
Yeah.
Sending money through child support is not being a father.
Yeah, that's not it's support monetarily. That is not support as a father. That's true.
In my eyes, okay, I'm not gonna say this to people out there that's like, well, I'm paying like $4,000 in child support. Okay, all right, I get that, right? I get that, and I'm not saying that it's not support, But my idea of support is because in my mind it's like this: anyone can go out and figure out how to make money, especially in this day and age. So if you just sending your child money, you're not doing anything different than what they're gonna know how to do anyway for themselves.
That's right.
But giving them the tools in order to make sure that when they get out there, they're doing it the right way and they're doing it the smart way. If you're not around, they're not seeing you as a male figure if you have a son to try to teach him certain things that a mother is not going to be able to teach him. If you're not there when you have a daughter, then she's going to grow up feeling unprotected. She's going to grow up feeling like she's going to be striving for some type of affection from a man. So you are enabling your children to wind up moving forward in life the same way we're trying to get our kids,
Yeah.
an uphill, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And it's not to say that it's not unnoticed, right? Because there's plenty of people that notice. Unfortunately, what I'm finding is that the only people really that notice are the people that are involved firsthand, and then their small group of people that support them. You know what I'm saying? Like I was just talking. So for instance, I was talking to, there's another guy I want to bring on, another father that I want to bring on. He actually works in the buildings, cleans all the buildings that my parlor is in and everything. And he'll stop by and we kind of chit chat and talk about the old days and all this other stuff, right? And we asked, because I asked him, and I was like, hey man, you have a daughter, right? And you had to pay child support and all that stuff. He's like, yeah. And I was like, so if, just wondering, like if you were able to have your kid more, right? Because you told me that the schedule that you got was, it was good for you. But if you could have more time with your daughter, if you could go back in time and say, nah, I can have these days off, I can take more days off, and I can be there. Because yeah, he showed up for the sport events, school events, and stuff like that, which is great. That is part of being a parent. But if I asked, if you could have more days, if you could have taken more days with your daughter, would you have? And this is a two-part, right? Because the first time I asked him, he was like, "Oh, I don't think so. I think, well, the schedule that we had was fine, right?" But I think that also that me questioning, and I asked a couple of different ways because I was like, I don't think he's understanding what I'm saying right now. Like, I really truly don't think he's catching my drift. Like, if you had the power to say, "Nah, I'm gonna take more days," would you? Is what I was asking. So I want to say maybe 1-2 days went by and he came back again. And he came back each day, but it was 1 to 2 days later where he goes, I want to talk to you about something. And I said, yeah, what's up? And he goes, you asked me if if I could take my daughter more days, if I would. And I said, absolutely. Yeah. I'm still curious because that your answer kind of, threw me for a loop. I mean, he goes, well, I don't think I understood what you were saying. And if I could have more days, to be quite honest, I would have taken more days with her. And even though, when she grew up, she wrote him this letter talking about all the times she remembered, like, what I'm saying, like she remembered him being there and she remembered like those weekends that they had. And she said like the things that were fun for her and like the memories that were just like good for her. Right. And it just crushed me because in reality, it could have been more of those times. It didn't have to just be like you only could remember these little memories because these were pretty much the only memories that we were given to be able to get. And it's like it's that because it's not just black dads that it happens to. We just got it. And did that happen in Vermont?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and and I thought it did. I just didn't want to just assume, but it's that right where two dads right here having this conversation, going through it two different times, two different judges more than likely, but with the craziest outcome where they're showing up because now this is where I'm gonna tie my first child in with yours. So my first child, he was around 10, maybe 11. No, he was like 10, getting ready to be 11. He ended up coming live with me because something happened over at his mom's crib. And she was just like, hey, he needs to come stay with you. And I was like, all right, I'm for this. So we did. He started living with me, and he lived with me for 2 years. Put out a written agreement between the parties, and part of that agreement was that child support card comes with me, because if I'm going to be taking care of him, for whatever amount of time, like that card, the money that goes on the card is for him, and I'm going to use it as such, right? This is where I dropped the ball. So we ended up leaving for a vacation, and right before that vacation, I want to say like a couple of weeks before vacation, something happened. We go on vacation, right? Right before my vacation, I let somebody that I was working with borrow $20. So in order to give him the $20, I put the child support card in the ATM, because on that vacation we had went to, I was supposed to bring that card with us, but I hadn't, and I actually left it home. When we got back home, that card was actually supposed to be the card I used for the funds that I had to like make up for on a different card that I was using. Nonetheless, the card goes into the ATM. This guy starts thanking me, crying. And in the meantime, the card gets sucked back into the ATM. I get home and I go, oh no, I just left that ATM card in the bank. So I call the bank. They're like, oh yeah, no worries, you can come get it. And they go, oh wait, actually it doesn't have your name on it, so you're gonna have to contact the person that has the name on the card to get it. No worries. So then I start thinking, I'm like, man, there's a lot of money built up on this card, because in reality, I didn't have to really use too much of that money, to support the child that was there. So I just kind of let the money rack up. And in my mind, I was like, all right, if this kid's gonna be staying here for the rest of the time here, because that's what my envision was, is he's gonna end up finishing the rest of his childhood years here. And when he turns 18, here's this card, buddy. This is all you. Don't spend it all in one place. Don't spend it all in one day, right? But when I contacted his mother, she also had contact and how to find how much was in that card and what funds were there. And I call and tell her, hey, listen, that card got sucked up in the ATM, yada 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 yada. Mom of the year wants to come back, and she goes, you know what? He's actually going to start staying with me, yada yada. Try playing this whole abuse card thing, and I was like, bro, because now you have that money back. Now we're going back, and that's when we went to court the second time. And it's even crazier is the reason why we ended up having to go to court the first time was because she was trafficking drugs, and I was trying to get my kid. Second time, she had a DUI pending, and she still got control. And I'm like, bro, make this make sense. And that was when I really started doing a little bit of that research that I needed to do.
You can't make it make sense, man. The only thing you can do is do what we know, like legitimately, like it's right here in front of us. It's all a money game, man. Like it really is. Like they don't care, nor are they truly worried about the kids, man. They not. They literally looked at me. I'm in court, and they literally looked at me and told me I put a restraining order out on the moms to protect my daughter. We went to court, and they really looked at me and was like, well, there's no way we can actually give you full custody because there was no abuse. This is after my daughter called me and her mom's is passed out with a needle in her arm and some man grabbed her. So I really looked at the judge, and they didn't like it, and I didn't care. I looked at the judge and I said, right in the Vermont District Court, right there, right around the corner from my apartment. I looked right at her and I said, listen, I said, I don't care what you think you got the rights over saying. I said, but you do not have the rights over saying how safe my daughter is going to be. I said, I'm going to let you know this right now. My daughter will not be your next statistics of why Vermont changes the law. I said, I'm letting you know that now. Well, what are you threatening the court? I said, I don't make threats. And I said it right. I said, I don't make threats. I said, but I'm telling you right now. I said, people will understand why I do whatever I do for my daughter. And she will not be the reason why y'all make a new law.
For these people, it would take that. And I really hope it would not take that. Maybe it'll be this. Maybe it'll be that one dad that got to the Supreme Court that brought the entire town of, with him on his back, because there's so many people that are looking at this situation going, what is happening? And I go, I don't know. And I was just telling my wife last night, man, I was like, yo, like therapy is both like a blessing and a curse, right? Because in one one hand, you're like, man, I really needed to get that off my chest, right? And on the other hand, it's like, damn, but nothing, like all I'm doing is getting it off my chest. Like nothing is changing. Am I going crazy here? Like, and it's like, I partly feel like craziness is happening because there's no one going, yeah, that's not right. And then and then changing it. And then
The crazy
changing.
is this, right? If you're driving down the road, right, and you see a puppy get hit by a car, right? How many people jumps out of that car to go check on the puppy, right? If you're going down the road and you see a elderly woman getting beat up by a bunch of thugs, how many people actually run over to that lady to try to help her,
Or
right?
do this.
Or you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, so if you look at different scenarios in life alone, right? And I like to speak metaphorically a lot because when you speak metaphorically, it kind of takes people's brains and it attaches it to something simple. So they can then contrast and understand what is really being spoken about, right? So I'm gonna put this in the most metaphorical way I can, right? Rainbows are not there for you to be able to stand on. You can see
Mm,
them, can't stand on them. Unicorns do not exist,
mm.
right? If you bury a seed in the ground, it'll grow a plant, whatever it can, right? Those are things that we know will happen, right?
Mm.
What people fail to understand is men and women who sit back and allow this type of behaviors in these courts to continue on either side to get to good parents, you're only making it worse. It doesn't get better if you sit back and allow it.
That's it.
Like it doesn't get better because the suicide rate has went up. The incarceration for kids that's under 13 has went up. Like if you look at these statistics, you can see the differences of how they've grown. You can see what this society is turning into, and it starts from the home, and it
Yeah.
starts from people raising these kids. You know what I mean? I'm a rare breed. I wasn't raised in a fantastic home, but I was raised by two people, and not really raised, but I was brought up by two people who said that I have a choice. I can either keep this cycle going or I can break it, and it's up to me to decide which way I want it to go.
Yeah.
Period. And I wanted to break it, right? Just like with my daughter. Like I explain everything to my daughter. Even to this day, I sit my daughter down and I explain her about her behaviors to try to break them down. You've been acting up. What's wrong? Do you not want to be here anymore? What's going on with you? Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out so we can figure out what we need to do to fix it.
That's it,
I'm not
man.
the problem. I want to concentrate on the solution. The problem's going to be there, especially if we don't find a solution. So the person right now, if you have a problem, you have a solution, your attention should be more focused on the solution than the problem because the problem already exists, right?
Period.
This problem in our court system already exists. So we cannot focus on something that already exists. We have to focus on how can we fix it.
That's it, brother. Hey, you about to come up on this wrap up. I can't thank you enough, bro. Thank you for coming out here, sharing that story, man. Like it needs to happen in order for us to make a change one way or the other. Yeah, no one's perfect. I'm not going to sit there and ever pretend like I'm the best dad that has ever, existed. And I will always continue growing. But the fact that there are fathers, good fathers, great fathers, even that want to be a part of their children's lives but are being denied that, this is where we come in, and this is where we can hopefully make a change.
That's what it's about. The solution.
All right, brother, tell everybody where they can find you, tell them all your socials, all your other stuff, and we'll go ahead and get this thing wrapped up.
Single fathers exist. You know what I mean? It's said that way for a reason because we are out here. My name is Will, and keep checking out these podcasts, man, because Dell he's going to bring a lot of things to light that a lot of people don't know. A lot of you fathers out there probably don't even know a lot of things, right? I was blown out of my mind when I found out that even child support is illegal. So if you dig deep enough into your cases and look into your information, you can find out a lot about what's going on. Stay strong. Fathers, stay strong. You're not alone. And that's the biggest message that we're trying to put out here, that you're not alone.
All right, well, hey brother, I appreciate you. I hope you have the most blessed day. And man, we're gonna have to link up. We're gonna have to drag you out that warm state, bring you back up to the cold for a little bit, man.
I'm loving it right now. I ain't gonna lie. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yes, sir.
We link up. You know what I mean?
And I would
But
and honestly, I would love to have you back on here, and maybe with whatever I do on this end, maybe we can make a change, make some better adjustments for even someone like you that has already gone through the craziness, but maybe have some type of retribution to it of some sort. I'm not done until everybody gets that wrong righted.
as many topics as you want to speak about, as much information as you want to go through, I'm here
All right, brother. Hey, you have a good day, man.
as well.
And that, y'all, was Will. And man, I can't thank him enough. My brother. And now he's out in a different state. So yeah, man, it's crazy out here. And we're just gonna try to make things right, because without, stories being told by any means, whether they're still ongoing, stories that have already happened, we got to make that message come out, and we gotta spread the message. So for those of you that have been rocking with us since the first podcast, I appreciate y'all. For those of you that are new sharing this, I appreciate you too. That GoFundMe, for those that have been supporting us that way, that's still out, that's still going. I will again put that down in the description. And yeah, man, you'll be able to find us YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all that other fun stuff. We're gonna be out here making some noise. As they say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and it's our time to make some noise, because this has been going on for far too long. So as y'all know, I'm Dell. This is Dell for Dads. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. Have a great day.